You know what? I'll start the Star Spangled Banner now, and people can still be coming in, and they'll discover that we're playing the Star Spangled Banner. What do you say? Okay, so if you've just joined, by the way, this is a meeting with Raymond Tierney, I'm sorry, Raymond Tierney, who's be discussing his background for us. He's waving hello. Okay, let's get started with the Star Spangled Banner, and then we'll give our full introductions in a moment.